Picture this moment with me. A 12-year-old girl stands in the middle of a busy Chicago street. Her hands are stained with grease that no amount of scrubbing can wash away. She's wearing her dead father's jacket, too big for her small frame, hanging past her knees like a superhero's cape. In front of her sits a broken Maserati worth $500,000. And standing beside that car is a billionaire in a suit that costs more than most people make in 3 months. He's looking down at this little girl, and he's laughing. Not a kind laugh. A cruel one. The kind of laugh that says, "You don't belong here. You're nobody." But Sofia Martinez looks up at him with steady eyes and says 5 words that will change everything. "I can fix this." The billionaire laughs harder. The crowd of angry drivers trapped in traffic starts to watch. And Sofia, this brave, brilliant girl, doesn't know it yet, but she's about to recognize something under that hood. Something that will shake an empire. Something that will force the world to remember a name they tried to erase. Her father's name. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me start from the beginning, because every great story deserves to be told right. It was a cold Tuesday evening in Chicago, and the traffic on Michigan Avenue was a nightmare. Cars honked. Drivers shouted out their windows. Everyone was angry, everyone was late, and right in the middle of it all sat a sleek black Maserati Quattroporte that refused to start. Sofia Martinez had been walking home from Patterson Auto Shop when she heard the chaos. She'd spent the afternoon cleaning tools and organizing parts, the way she did every day after school. Mr. Patterson, who owned the shop, let her work there in exchange for teaching her about engines. It wasn't charity. Sofia was a quick learner, maybe the quickest he'd ever seen. She had a gift. That gift came from her father. When Sofia turned the corner and saw the traffic jam, she knew immediately what had happened. A car had died right in the middle of rush hour. She could see exhaust vapor rising, could hear the clicking of a starter trying and failing to turn over the engine. And then she saw him. The man who owned the car stepped out like he owned the entire street. Tall, silver-haired, wearing a suit that probably cost more than Sofia's mom made in 3 months of working double shifts at the hospital. He had his phone pressed to his ear, and even from a distance, Sofia could hear the anger in his voice. "I don't care what you're doing," he snapped into the phone. "Send a flatbed truck now. I'm not standing on a street corner like some." He noticed Sofia watching him. "What are you looking at, kid?" Sofia was 12, small for her age, with dark hair pulled back in a ponytail. Her jeans were worn at the knees. Her sneakers had holes in them. And that jacket, her father's old mechanic jacket, was covered in oil stains and smelled like motor oil and memories. She knew exactly what this man saw when he looked at her. A poor kid from the South Side who didn't belong anywhere near a car worth $500,000. But Sofia had learned something from her father. When you see something broken, you don't walk away just because someone tells you it's not your problem. "Your car," Sofia said simply. "It's not starting." The man let out a short, harsh laugh. "Brilliant observation. Yes, my car isn't starting. That's why I'm calling a tow truck instead of driving it." His voice dripped with contempt. "Now, unless you have a spare Maserati engine in your pocket, I suggest you move along." Sofia stepped closer. She could see it now, the way the exhaust vapor was forming, the sound of the starter engaging but not catching. These were clues. A puzzle her father had taught her how to solve. "Can I look?" she asked. The man stared at her like she'd asked to perform brain surgery. "This is a custom Maserati," he said slowly, like he was talking to someone very stupid. "It's worth more than your entire neighborhood. I'm not letting some street kid poke around under the hood." "I'm not some street kid," Sofia said. Her voice was quiet, but there was steel in it. "I'm a mechanic. Well, I'm learning. But I know engines." The man looked at her. Really looked. And Sofia saw the exact moment he decided she wasn't worth his time. "Sure you do," he said, his laugh louder now. Several people in nearby cars turned to watch. "Now get lost before I call the police." Behind them, the honking got louder. Someone shouted an insult out their window. The man's face turned red. "Sir," Sofia tried again. "I can fix this. I really can." "You." The man's voice was full of mockery. "You're what, 10 years old? Covered in grease like you've been rolling in a junkyard? And you think you can fix a car that my personal mechanic, who charges $300 an hour, can't keep running?" 12, Sofia corrected. "I'm 12. And yes, I think I can fix it." The man pulled out his wallet and extracted a $20 bill. He held it out to Sofia like she was a stray dog begging for scraps. "Here," he said. "Take this." Buy yourself dinner and leave me alone." Sophia didn't take the money. Instead, she walked to the front of the Maserati and knelt down, looking underneath. Her father had taught her that sometimes the problem isn't where people think it is. You have to look deeper. "Hey!" The man stalked toward her. "I told you to. Your fuel pump relay is fine," Sophia called out, still examining the undercarriage. "So it's not a fuel delivery problem. And I can hear the starter engaging, so it's not the battery or alternator." The man stopped walking. "How do you?" "My dad taught me." The words hurt to say. Past tense. Taught. Because her father was gone. Had been gone for 18 months. And sometimes Sophia still forgot and thought about showing him something new she'd learned, before remembering he'd never see it. She pushed the grief down and focused on the car. "Can you pop the hood?" she asked. "Absolutely not. Then you'll be stuck here until the tow truck arrives," Sophia said, standing up and wiping her hands on her jacket. "Which, in this traffic, will probably take an hour. Maybe more. And all these people," she gestured to the growing line of angry cars. "They're all going to remember the guy in the expensive car who was too proud to accept help from a kid." The man's jaw clenched. He looked at his phone. At the traffic. At Sophia. At the crowd of people now watching this confrontation with interest. "Fine," he snapped. "You have 2 minutes. Then I'm calling the police to have you removed." He reached into the car and pulled the hood release. Sophia lifted the hood. It was heavy, built like a tank, and looked at the engine bay. And that's when her world changed. Before I tell you what Sophia saw under that hood, you need to understand where her gift came from. Carlos Martinez had been the best father Sophia could have asked for. He wasn't rich. He didn't drive fancy cars or live in a big house. But he had something more valuable than money. He had passion. And he shared that passion with his daughter every single day. Sophia's earliest memories were of sitting in their small garage, watching her father work. She'd be perched on an overturned bucket, maybe 5 years old, while Carlos explained how an engine worked. "See this, Mija?" he'd say, holding up a spark plug. "This little thing creates a spark that ignites the fuel. Boom. That explosion pushes the piston, and that's what makes the car move. It's like magic, except it's science. And science is better than magic because you can learn it. You can understand it. You can fix it when it breaks." Carlos would let her hand him tools. He'd explain every step, never talking down to her, never making her feel like she was too young or too small to understand. And Sophia absorbed it all like a sponge. By the time she was 8, she could diagnose a misfiring cylinder just by listening to an engine. By 10, she could change oil, replace brake pads, and adjust timing belts. By 12, Sophia understood engines better than most adults who'd been working on cars for decades. But it wasn't just mechanical knowledge that Carlos gave his daughter. It was something deeper, a way of seeing the world. "When something's broken," he'd tell her, working late into the night at their kitchen table, "most people just throw it away and buy something new. But we're not most people, Sophia. We're fixers. We look at broken things and we see possibility. We see the chance to make something work again." Those late nights at the kitchen table, those were Sophia's favorite memories. Carlos would spread out his notebooks, filled with designs and calculations and dreams. He was an engineer at Blackwood Industries, one of the biggest automotive companies in Chicago. His specialty was hybrid systems, engines that combined traditional fuel with electric power to make cars more efficient, cleaner, better for the planet. "This is the future, Mija," he'd say, showing her his sketches. "Cars that don't poison the air. Engines that use half the fuel. Technology that helps the earth instead of hurting it." Sophia would sit across from him, doing her homework, but mostly watching her father's hands move across the page. His handwriting was neat and precise. His calculations were perfect. His designs were brilliant. She didn't fully understand all the technical details, but she understood the most important thing. Her father was trying to make the world better. And then one terrible day 18 months ago, he was gone. The official story was simple. Equipment failure during a pressure test at the Blackwood Industries facility. Carlos had been trying to save his prototypes when something went wrong. The explosion killed him instantly. The company sent a generic sympathy card. The insurance paid out a small settlement. And the world moved on like Carlos Martinez had never existed. But Sophia's world stopped. Suddenly, their small apartment felt too big and too empty at the same time. Suddenly, her mother Elena was working 2 jobs just to keep them afloat. Suddenly, her little brother Miguel, only 7 years old when it happened, kept asking when Daddy was coming home, until Sophia had to explain over and over that he wasn't. He couldn't. He was gone forever. Sophia stopped talking much after that. She stopped caring about school, about friends, about anything except the one thing that still connected her to her father: engines. She'd put on Carlos's old mechanic jacket, the one that smelled like him, like motor oil and determination, and she'd walk to Patterson Auto Shop. Mr. Patterson, who'd known her father, understood. He let her work, let her learn, let her grieve in the only way she knew how, by fixing broken things. Because if Sophia could fix engines, maybe somehow she could fix the broken pieces inside herself too. But now, standing in front of this billionaire's Maserati, Sophia saw something that made her blood run cold. The engine wasn't standard. It had been modified, customized. And the design. Sophia's breath caught in her throat. She knew this design. This isn't a regular Maserati, she said, more to herself than to the man. This engine's been modified. The intake manifold, the ignition timing system. She leaned closer, her heart pounding. Wait, this design is. It couldn't be. But it was. The Blackwood hybrid system. Sophia had seen this exact configuration in her father's notebooks. Notebook number 7, to be specific. Pages and pages of detailed schematics, showing exactly how to integrate electric propulsion with a traditional combustion engine. Her father had spent 3 years perfecting this design, working late nights at their kitchen table, dreaming about the day he could patent it under his own name and change the automotive industry forever. But he'd died before that could happen. And now here it was, in this billionaire's car, being called the Blackwood hybrid system. The ignition module, Sophia heard herself saying, her voice distant and strange. It's mounted wrong. The heat from the exhaust is cooking it. That's why you're getting intermittent failures. The billionaire, she still didn't know his name, was staring at her now with a different expression. Not mockery anymore. Something else. Fear. Recognition? How do you know about the Blackwood hybrid? He asked quietly. Sophia's hands were shaking. I need to relocate this module. Move it 6 inches forward, add a heat shield. The car will start fine then. You're not touching anything else. Then you'll be stuck here. Their eyes met. And in that moment, something passed between them. An understanding. A challenge. Fine, the man said. But if you break anything. I won't, Sophia interrupted. She pulled out the small tool kit she always carried in her father's jacket pocket, a gift from Mr. Patterson, and got to work. The crowd had stopped honking now. They were watching. This 12-year-old girl, elbow deep in a Maserati engine, moving with the kind of confidence that only comes from truly understanding what you're doing. Sophia removed the ignition module. She found a piece of aluminum flashing in a nearby dumpster and fashioned a temporary heat shield. She relocated the mounting bracket using zip ties from her toolkit. It wasn't pretty, but it would work. 15 minutes later, she stepped back. Try it now. The man got into the car and turned the key. The Maserati roared to life. Smooth. Perfect. Like it had never been broken. The crowd erupted in cheers and applause. Someone whistled. A woman shouted, "That's right, girl. Show him." Sophia closed the hood carefully. She wiped her hands on her jacket, her mind still reeling from what she'd seen under that hood. Her father's invention. Stolen. Being used to make someone else rich and famous. How did you know about the Blackwood hybrid system? The man asked again, stepping out of the car. My dad worked on something like it, Sophia said. The words felt like glass in her throat. He was an engineer. Automotive design. Your father's name? Carlos Martinez. Sophia said it clearly. Proudly. He was the best engineer you've ever seen. The man went pale. Actually pale. Like all the blood had drained out of his face. Carlos Martinez, he repeated slowly. Yeah. Sophia tilted her head, studying him. Did you know him? The man didn't answer. Instead, he pulled out his wallet and extracted several $100 bills. For the repair, he said. Sophia looked at the money but didn't take it. I didn't do it for money. I did it because the car needed fixing and I knew how. Take it anyway. Sophia shook her head. I don't want your money. Then what do you want? What did she want? Justice? Recognition? For someone to admit that her father had been brilliant before the accident took him? I want you to remember, Sophia said, her voice breaking, that the kid who fixed your car learned from Carlos Martinez, and that he was worth remembering. She turned to walk away. Wait, the man called. What's your name? Sophia Martinez. She looked back at him. And you are? The man hesitated. Then, quietly, Alexander Blackwood. The world tilted. Blackwood. As in Blackwood Industries. As in the company her father had worked for. As in the CEO who'd sent that generic sympathy card and nothing else. As in the man whose name was on the hybrid system her father had invented. You, Sophia whispered. You're the one who. But Alexander Blackwood was already getting back into his Maserati. Thank you for the repair, Miss Martinez. The car pulled away, leaving Sophia standing in the middle of Michigan Avenue, hands shaking, the crowd dispersing, everything feeling wrong and right and impossible all at once. She walked home in a daze. Their apartment was on the third floor of a building that should have been condemned years ago. The stairs creaked. The walls were thin. The heater barely worked in winter. But it was home. Sophia's mother, Elena, was already there, cooking dinner before leaving for her night shift at the hospital. Her hair was pulled back in a tired ponytail. Her scrubs were faded from too many washings. She looked older than 34, worn down by grief and overwork and the constant struggle to keep her family afloat. Hey, baby, Elena called from the tiny kitchen. How was Patterson's? Fine, Sophia said. Her voice sounded distant, even to herself. She stood in the doorway, watching her mother stir a pot of rice and beans. Cheap food that could stretch for days. Miguel was at the small table, coloring a picture of a car. He always drew cars now. Their father's influence, still present even in death. Mom, Sophia said. Did Dad ever work on something called the Blackwood hybrid system? The spoon Elena was holding clattered into the pot. She turned slowly, her face going pale. Where did you hear that name? Elena's voice was tight, controlled in the way it got when she was trying very hard not to cry. I saw it today. In a car. A Maserati owned by Alexander Blackwood. Elena turned off the stove. She sat down heavily at their small kitchen table, suddenly looking 10 years older. Sophia, sweetheart, she said. Sit down. Sophia sat. Miguel looked up from his coloring, sensing something important was happening. Elena took a deep breath. Your father worked at Blackwood Industries for 8 years. He was their lead engineer for hybrid systems. The Blackwood hybrid was his project. His design. His innovation. He spent 3 years developing it, testing it, perfecting it. What happened? Sophia asked, though part of her already knew. Already understood. 2 weeks before he was going to patent it under his own name. Elena's hands were shaking now. There was an accident at the factory. A pressure test went wrong. Your father was trying to save his equipment, his prototypes. He was in the building when. She couldn't finish. Sophia's throat was tight. They said it was an accident. It was investigated. The company was cleared. Elena's voice was bitter now. But Sophia, 3 months after your father died, Blackwood Industries announced the Blackwood hybrid system. They patented it. They've made millions from it. And they never mentioned your father's name. Not once. They stole it, Sophia said flatly. I couldn't prove it, Elena said. I tried, baby. I hired a lawyer with money we didn't have. But the company said they owned everything your father created while he worked there. Even though he designed it at home, on his own time, at our kitchen table. They said it belonged to them. Elena reached across the table and took Sophia's hand. I'm so sorry, she whispered. I couldn't keep fighting. I had 2 kids to feed. Bills to pay. I had to let it go. Sophia stood up abruptly. Where are Dad's notebooks? They were in a box in Sophia's closet. 14 notebooks filled with her father's handwriting, his designs, his dreams. Sophia pulled out number 7 and flipped through it with shaking hands. There it was. The Blackwood hybrid system. Every detail, every calculation, every innovation. All in her father's neat, precise handwriting. Dated 2 years before Blackwood Industries claimed to have invented it. Mom, Sophia said quietly. I just fixed Alexander Blackwood's car with Dad's stolen invention. Elena's face went through several emotions at once. Shock. Anger. And then, unexpectedly, something that looked like pride. What are you thinking? Elena asked carefully. Sophia looked at her father's notebooks. At the proof that Carlos Martinez had been brilliant. That he'd created something revolutionary. That he deserved credit and compensation, and to be remembered. I'm thinking, Sophia said, holding her father's multi-tool, the one he'd given her the week before he died. That it's time Alexander Blackwood learned who really invented his precious hybrid system. She didn't know how yet. Didn't know what a 12-year-old girl could do against a billionaire CEO. But she knew one thing for certain. Her father's legacy wasn't going to be forgotten. And Alexander Blackwood was about to discover that Carlos Martinez's daughter had inherited more than just his mechanical skills. She'd inherited his refusal to be invisible. She'd inherited his belief that when something is broken, you don't walk away. You fix it, even if what's broken is justice itself. Sophia didn't sleep that night. She lay in the bed she shared with Miguel. They couldn't afford separate beds, hadn't been able to since their father died, staring at the ceiling, her mind racing. All she could see was that engine, her father's design, his life's work, being driven around by the man who'd stolen it. Around midnight, Miguel rolled over in his sleep and threw his arm across her. 7 years old. No, 8 now, and he still had nightmares about their father. Still woke up crying sometimes, asking why Daddy had to go to work that day, why the accident had to happen, why their family had to be the one that got broken. Sophia gently moved his arm and got up. She walked to their small window that looked out over the south side of Chicago. Streetlights flickered. Somewhere a siren wailed. This was their world, small, struggling, forgotten by people like Alexander Blackwood. But her father had believed that where you came from didn't matter. What mattered was what you could do, what you could fix, what you could create. And he'd created something extraordinary. Sophia picked up her phone. It was old, cracked screen, hand-me-down from her mother. But it worked. She opened her photos and looked at the pictures she'd taken of her father's notebooks. Page after page of genius. Proof that Carlos Martinez had invented the Blackwood hybrid system. She didn't know what to do with that proof yet. But she knew she had to do something. Tomorrow, she decided. Tomorrow she'd figure it out. She finally fell asleep around 3 in the morning. At 7:30, her phone started buzzing. Then it wouldn't stop. Sophia woke up confused, reaching for the phone. Text messages from numbers she didn't recognize. Notifications from social media apps she barely used. Her email inbox exploding with new messages. "What the?" she muttered, sitting up. Elena rushed into the room, her own phone in her hand, her eyes wide. "Sophia," her mother said. "Baby, you need to see this." Elena showed her the video. Someone had filmed the whole thing. Yesterday evening, on Michigan Avenue. The angle was shaky, shot through a car windshield, but the audio was crystal clear. Sophia could hear her own voice. "I can fix this." Then Alexander Blackwood's cruel laugh. "Sure you do. Now get lost before I call the police." The video showed Sophia working under the hood for 15 minutes, condensed to 2 minutes of footage. It showed the crowd gathering. It showed the moment the Maserati roared back to life. It showed the cheers and applause. And it showed Sophia's face when Blackwood drove away. A 12-year-old girl standing alone in the street, hands shaking, looking like her world had just shattered. The caption read, "12-year-old girl fixes billionaire's Maserati after he mocks her. CEO Alexander Blackwood should be ashamed. #Justice for Sophia." The video had been posted last night around 9. It now had 15 million views. 15 million, Sophia whispered, staring at the number like it couldn't be real. "Keep watching," Elena said quietly. Sophia scrolled through the comments. Thousands and thousands of them. "This made me cry. That little girl has more skill than most mechanics I know. Alexander Blackwood is a known jerk. About time someone put him in his place. I'm a mechanic with 20 years experience. What that kid did in 15 minutes would take me an hour. She's genuinely talented. My daughter is 12. Seeing this girl stand up to that arrogant CEO made her cry. Thank you for showing her girls can do anything." But there were other comments too. Ones that made Sophia's stomach turn. Obviously staged. Publicity stunt for Blackwood Industries. That's not a real kid. It's a paid actor. Even if it's real, she probably broke something. Rich guy was nice to let her try. Sophia felt tears prick her eyes. Even when she did something amazing, some people would try to tear her down. "Don't read those," Elena said firmly, taking the phone. "The people who matter, they know the truth. They see you." There was a knock at the door. Mr. Patterson stood there, his weathered face unusually serious. "Riley," he said, then caught himself. "Old habit. Sophia, you need to come to the shop. Now." 20 minutes later, Sophia stood in Patterson Auto Shop, surrounded by 3 other mechanics who worked there. They were all staring at a laptop screen. "Kid," Mr. Patterson said slowly. "Do you know what you've done?" "I just fixed a car," Sophia said quietly. "You did a lot more than that." He turned the laptop toward her. News articles. Dozens of them. Girl genius fixes billionaire's car after being mocked. 12-year-old mechanic humbles arrogant CEO. Chicago girl shows up Alexander Blackwood, and the internet loves it. This is national news, Mr. Patterson said. International, even. You're trending on every social media platform. And people are asking questions. What kind of questions? Elena asked, her hand protectively on Sophia's shoulder. About why a 12-year-old girl knows how to fix a Blackwood hybrid system. One of the other mechanics, Danny said. About where she learned it. About who taught her. Mr. Patterson pulled up another article. This one from an automotive engineering blog. The modifications the young mechanic described, moving the ignition module, adding heat shielding, are exactly the kind of fixes that suggest intimate familiarity with the Blackwood hybrid's original design specifications. This raises interesting questions about how a child gained access to what is supposed to be proprietary technology. Sophia's heart started pounding. They're asking how I knew about it. Yeah, Mr. Patterson said gently. And that's your opportunity, kid. To tell people the truth about your father. Sophia pulled out her phone. The emails were still coming in. Reporters requesting interviews. News channels wanting her to come on their shows. And then one email caught her eye. Morrison and Partners law firm. Pro bono representation offer. Her hands shook as she opened it. Ms. Martinez, we saw the video of you repairing Mr. Blackwood's vehicle. We've also become aware of potential intellectual property theft involving your late father's work. Our firm specializes in corporate theft cases, and we'd like to offer our services pro bono. If your father's notebooks contain what we believe they do, this case could set a precedent for protecting individual inventors' rights against corporate theft. Elena read over Sophia's shoulder. Her breath caught. Sophia, she whispered. This is real. This is a real law firm. I looked them up. They've won cases against companies 10 times the size of Blackwood Industries. We should also call Professor Richardson, Mr. Patterson said. At Northwestern. He's an automotive engineering expert. If he verifies Carlos's notebooks, that's independent proof that your dad invented that system. Things started moving fast after that. By noon, Sophia and Elena were sitting in Professor Daniel Richardson's office at Northwestern University. He was in his 50s, with kind eyes and graying hair, and the moment Mr. Patterson explained why they'd come, his expression changed. Carlos Martinez, the professor said quietly. I knew your father, Sophia. Not well, but we presented at the same engineering conference 5 years ago. He talked for 20 minutes about sustainable automotive design. I didn't understand half of it, but his passion, he smiled sadly. His passion was infectious. I'm so sorry for your loss. Sophia pulled out the notebooks. All 14 of them. Professor Richardson spent the next hour studying them. He didn't skim. He read every page, checked every calculation, compared diagrams to known specifications of the Blackwood hybrid system. The longer he read, the more troubled his expression became. Finally, he looked up at Sophia with something like awe and anger mixed together. This is unquestionable, he said. Your father designed the Blackwood hybrid system. Every major innovation, every efficiency improvement. It's all here in his handwriting, dated months before Blackwood Industries filed their patent. Can you testify to that? Elena asked, her voice shaking with hope. Absolutely. Professor Richardson's voice was firm. But Sophia, Mrs. Martinez, you need to understand what you're up against. Blackwood Industries is worth billions. They've built their reputation on this technology. If you prove they stole it, you're not just taking money from them. You're destroying their credibility. Potentially opening them up to lawsuits from every company they've licensed the technology to. Good, Sophia said, her voice harder than she'd ever heard it. They deserve it. Maybe so. But they won't go down without a fight. By the time they left the university, the video had 20 million views. And Alexander Blackwood had released a statement. Sophia read it in the car on the way home, Elena driving their old Honda that barely ran. Yesterday, I had the pleasure of meeting a talented young person who helped with a minor vehicle issue. While I appreciate her enthusiasm, I want to clarify that the repair was temporary and required professional attention afterward. I've sent a donation to her local school's STEM program as a thank you. I wish her well in her future endeavors. Sophia felt rage building in her chest. Hot. Sharp. Overwhelming. He's making it sound like I'm just some cute kid who helped him out, she said. Like it was nothing. Of course he is, Elena said bitterly. He's trying to control the story before you can. Making himself look generous. Making you look like a charity case he's helping. What do I do? Elena pulled the car over. She turned to face her daughter. "You tell the truth," she said. "Your truth. Your father's truth. You tell it loud, and you tell it everywhere until the whole world hears it." The interview was scheduled for the next day at noon. Channel 7 News, the biggest local station in Chicago. Marcus Webb, the anchor, was known for tough questions and zero patience for corporate nonsense. When his producers had called Sophia's new lawyer, Patricia Morrison from Morrison and Partners, they'd made it clear. They wanted the real story. Sophia barely slept that night either. She kept practicing what she'd say, how she'd explain about her father, about the notebooks, about everything. Miguel crawled into bed with her around midnight. "Are you scared?" he asked in his small voice. "Yeah," Sophia admitted. "Really scared." "Of what?" "Of messing up. Of saying the wrong thing. Of everyone laughing at me." Miguel was quiet for a moment. Then, "Dad used to say that being scared means you care about something. And caring is never wrong." Sophia felt tears sting her eyes. Miguel had been so young when Carlos died, but he remembered. He carried those pieces of their father inside him. "When did Dad say that?" she asked. "When I was scared to start school. Remember? I didn't want to go because the other kids might be mean. And Dad said being scared just meant I cared about making friends. That it was okay to be scared as long as I was still brave." Sophia pulled her little brother close. "Dad was really smart." "Yeah," Miguel said. "And so are you. That's why you're going to do great tomorrow." The next morning, Sophia stood outside the Channel 7 studios wearing the nicest clothes they owned, which still weren't very nice. Elena had tried to tame Sophia's hair, but the grease stains under her fingernails were permanent. "You look perfect," Elena said, though her voice shook. "I look like a kid from the South Side. You look like Carlos Martinez's daughter. That's all that matters." Inside was chaos. Producers rushing around. Cameras being positioned. Someone tried to put makeup on Sophia's face, but she kept fidgeting until they gave up. Marcus Webb was exactly like he looked on TV. Sharp suit, sharper eyes, and a handshake that felt genuine. "Sophia," he said, "I've been following your story. Your father was a remarkable man. You knew him?" "I interviewed him once, about 5 years ago. Engineering conference. He talked for 20 minutes about sustainable automotive design. I didn't understand half of it, but his passion." Marcus smiled. "You have his eyes, you know. Same intensity." That almost broke Sophia's composure right there. The interview went live at noon. Marcus started gentle. "How old was Sophia? Where did she learn mechanics? Who taught her?" "My dad," Sophia said, her voice small at first but growing stronger. "Carlos Martinez. He was an engineer at Blackwood Industries. He taught me everything about engines. We'd spend hours in the garage, just working together. He said that fixing things was the most important skill anyone could learn." And then, Marcus said gently, "You saw the viral video. Let's watch it together." They played the video on the studio monitors. Sophia watched herself, small, determined, covered in grease, telling Alexander Blackwood, "I can fix this." "That moment," Marcus said, "when you identified the Blackwood hybrid system in his car. Talk me through what you felt." Sophia took a breath. This was it. The moment to tell the truth. "I was confused at first," she said, "because I recognized the design from my dad's notebooks. But I didn't understand why it was in Mr. Blackwood's car. And then I remembered." Her voice cracked. "I remembered that Blackwood Industries claimed they invented it. But my dad designed that system. Every component, every innovation. It was his. You have proof of this?" Sophia held up notebook number 7. The cameras zoomed in. 14 notebooks full of my dad's designs. All dated before Blackwood Industries filed their patent. Professor Daniel Richardson from Northwestern University verified them. Every major innovation in the Blackwood hybrid system is documented here in my father's handwriting. Marcus nodded. "We've confirmed independently that these notebooks are authentic. The dates check out. The technical specifications match the patented Blackwood hybrid system exactly." He looked directly at the camera. "We reached out to Blackwood Industries for comment. Here's what they sent us." He played a video clip. Alexander Blackwood, recorded that morning looking tired. "We have great respect for Carlos Martinez and his contributions to our company. However, all intellectual property developed by our employees belongs to Blackwood Industries per their employment contracts. Mr. Martinez was a valued team member, and we honor his memory." Sophia felt something snap inside her. "Valued team member," she repeated, her voice sharp now. "My dad died in an accident at their facility. A pressure test that went wrong because they were rushing, cutting corners, ignoring safety protocols. That's a serious accusation, Marcus said. It's the truth. Sophia looked directly into the camera, imagining Alexander Blackwood watching. We have safety reports showing violations. We have my dad's emails warning about the dangers. We have everything. Her voice broke on the last word, but she pushed through. My dad believed that hard work and innovation mattered. That if you created something brilliant, you'd get credit for it. He was wrong, because Blackwood Industries took his work, took his life, and then pretended he never existed. Elena, watching from backstage, was crying. So was Miguel, sitting next to her. What do you want? Marcus asked gently. What outcome are you hoping for? Sophia thought about her father, about late nights at the kitchen table, about his dreams of making the world better. I want my dad's name on that patent, she said. I want everyone who buys a car with the Blackwood hybrid system to know that Carlos Martinez invented it. I want Blackwood Industries to admit what they did. She paused, wiping her eyes. And I want them to create a safety foundation in my dad's name. So no other engineer dies because a company cares more about deadlines than people. And financially? Marcus asked. The Blackwood hybrid system has generated millions in licensing fees. Whatever the court decides is fair for my dad's work, we'll accept, Sophia said. But this isn't about money. It's about making sure my dad isn't forgotten. That my little brother, her voice cracked again, harder this time, that my little brother grows up knowing his father was brilliant and deserves to be remembered. The interview lasted 30 minutes. By the time it ended, Sophia was exhausted, emotionally wrung out, but also lighter somehow. She'd said everything she needed to say. The truth was out there now, for everyone to hear. In the green room afterward, Patricia Morrison was waiting with her laptop. You need to see this, the lawyer said, her voice tight with controlled excitement. Blackwood Industries stock had dropped 12% in the 30 minutes since the interview aired. Social media was exploding. Hashtag Justice for Carlos was trending worldwide. People were sharing the video, the interview clips, demanding answers. And Alexander Blackwood had released another statement. In light of recent information, Blackwood Industries is conducting an internal review of the Blackwood hybrid systems development. We remain committed to honoring all contributors to our innovations. That's not an admission, Elena said. No, Patricia agreed. But it's panic. He's trying to get ahead of this before it destroys him. Which means, Sophia's phone buzzed. A text from a number she didn't recognize. This is Dr. Jennifer Hayes, VP of Engineering at Blackwood Industries. I worked directly under your father. What they did to him was unforgivable. I have documents, emails, meeting notes, safety reports that prove everything you said. I'm ready to testify. Not because the video shamed me, but because you deserve the truth. Your father was the best engineer I ever worked with. And he died because Alexander Blackwood cared more about profits than people. I'll help you prove it. Sophia showed the message to Patricia, whose eyes widened. This is it, the lawyer said. This is what breaks the case wide open. An insider willing to testify. She looked at Sophia with something like awe. Do you understand what you've done? In 3 days, you've accomplished what your mother couldn't in 3 years. You've forced Blackwood to the table. I just told the truth, Sophia said quietly. That's exactly why it worked. The meeting request came 2 days later. Alexander Blackwood wanted to meet with Sophia. Face to face. No lawyers. Patricia's immediate response was, absolutely not. My client is 12 years old. You don't get unsupervised access to her. But Blackwood had insisted. Then you can be there. But I need to talk to Sophia Martinez. I need to explain. Explain what? Patricia had demanded. I need to apologize. Now Sophia sat in Patricia's conference room, flanked by her mother and her lawyer. Mr. Patterson stood by the door like a guardian. And across the table sat Alexander Blackwood. He looked different. Smaller somehow. He wore a simple suit and carried a worn folder, and there was no armor of wealth surrounding him today. No arrogance. No condescension. He looked like a man who hadn't slept in days. Thank you for agreeing to see me, Blackwood said quietly. You have 10 minutes, Patricia said firmly. Then we proceed with litigation. Blackwood nodded. He opened the folder and pulled out a photograph. It was Sophia's father. Younger, maybe 30. Standing in front of an engine prototype, grinning at the camera with grease on his hands and joy in his eyes. Sophia's breath caught. I found this in our archives, Blackwood said, sliding the photo across the table. From 7 years ago. The day your father first proposed the hybrid system concept to our engineering team. I wasn't there for the presentation. I was too busy with a merger deal. Too important to attend an engineer's pitch meeting. Sophia touched the photograph with trembling fingers. She'd never seen this picture. Her father looked so alive. So full of hope. He was brilliant that day, Blackwood continued. According to the notes, he talked for 2 hours about sustainable design. About reducing emissions without sacrificing performance. Dr. Hayes said she'd never seen someone so passionate about making the world better through engineering. Why are you telling me this? Sophia asked. Because you asked me to remember him. Blackwood's voice cracked. And I didn't. I couldn't even picture his face when you said his name on Michigan Avenue. He pulled out more documents. Safety reports marked urgent in her father's handwriting. Emails warning about equipment stress. Requests for more time, more testing, better protocols. All ignored. Your father died because I pushed too hard, Blackwood said. We had investors breathing down our necks. Competitors getting close to similar technology. I approved the pressure test even though Carlos said we weren't ready. I told him to make it work because we couldn't afford delays. Elena's hand flew to her mouth. You knew it was dangerous, Sophia said flatly. He told me it was dangerous. I didn't listen. Blackwood's face was gray now. I thought engineers were always overly cautious. That Carlos was being dramatic. So I overruled his objections and ordered the test anyway. You killed him. The words came out emotionless because if Sophia let herself feel them, she'd shatter. Yes, Blackwood said. He didn't flinch from it. Not intentionally, but my negligence, my arrogance, my refusal to listen to the expert I'd hired. It killed him. And then after he died, I let my legal team bury the safety violations. I let them rewrite the narrative so Blackwood Industries looked blameless. He looked directly at Sophia. And when Dr. Hayes begged me to credit Carlos for the hybrid system, I told her to keep quiet. I stole your father's invention. I profited from his death. And I did it because it was easier than admitting I'd made a mistake. The room was silent. Even Patricia looked stunned. Why are you confessing this? Sophia asked. Your lawyers must be having a heart attack right now. They are, Blackwood agreed. They told me this meeting was corporate suicide. That I was handing you everything you'd need to destroy Blackwood Industries. He pulled out another document and slid it across the table. But I don't care anymore. Patricia picked up the document. Her eyes widened as she read. This is everything, she whispered. Carlos Martinez's name on every patent, Blackwood said. Full retroactive credit for the Blackwood hybrid system. $30 million in compensation for stolen intellectual property. $10 million for wrongful death. And a foundation in Carlos's name with an endowment of $50 million to improve automotive safety standards. Sarah made a sound like she'd been punched. Additionally, Blackwood continued, I'm stepping down as CEO. The board will announce it tomorrow. Dr. Hayes will take over as interim CEO. She's the only person who fought for Carlos. She deserves to lead the company he helped build. You're giving up everything, Sophia said. No, I'm finally doing the right thing. Blackwood looked at the photograph of Carlos. Your father loved his work. Loved engineering. Loved the idea that he could make cars cleaner, better, safer. He died because I cared more about deadlines than I cared about the man doing the work. That's unforgivable. Then why should we forgive you? Sophia's voice shook but stayed strong. You shouldn't. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I'm asking for the chance to make sure what happened to your father never happens to anyone else. He pulled out one more document. This is a pledge. Blackwood Industries will dedicate 20% of all hybrid system profits to funding safety research, whistleblower protections, and family support for engineers killed in industrial accidents. Blackwood looked at Miguel, who'd been silent through the whole meeting. Your father was a hero, he said to the 8-year-old boy. Not because he invented something brilliant, but because he tried to do the right thing even when it cost him everything. I want to make sure everyone knows that. Miguel's eyes filled with tears. Do you remember him now? What he looked like? Yeah, kid. Blackwood's voice was thick with emotion. I remember him, and I'll never forget him again. Patricia reviewed the settlement documents with rapid efficiency. This is legally binding, she said. Once signed, Blackwood Industries admits fault, pays the settlement, and establishes the foundation. Mr. Blackwood, you understand you're opening yourself up to shareholder lawsuits, potential criminal negligence charges, and complete professional destruction. I understand. Why? Patricia asked. Why confess everything when you could fight this for years? Blackwood looked at Sophia. Because she walked up to my broken car and said, I can fix this. And she did. A 12-year-old girl fixed something my $300 an hour mechanic couldn't. Fixed it with zip ties and scrap metal and her father's knowledge. He smiled sadly. She reminded me that the best engineering doesn't come from money or status. It comes from people who care enough to learn, to try to fix what's broken. Her father was one of those people. And I destroyed him. Blackwood stood up and extended his hand to Sophia. I'm sorry. Truly, deeply sorry for everything. Sophia looked at his hand. This man had stolen from her family, lied to them, profited from her father's death. He deserved her hatred. But Sophia thought about her father, about the way he'd always believed people could be better, could learn, could change. She shook Blackwood's hand. My dad would have wanted the foundation, she said. He cared about keeping people safe. So I accept your settlement. But Mr. Blackwood, you don't get to forget this. Every time someone mentions the Blackwood hybrid system, you remember it's really the Carlos Martinez hybrid system. Every time you see a car using that technology, you remember the man who died creating it. I will, Blackwood promised. Every single day. That night, the settlement was announced publicly. The news exploded. Blackwood CEO admits theft and negligence. Girl mechanic wins justice for father. 12-year-old brings down billionaire. But Sophia didn't care about the headlines. She cared about the statement Blackwood Industries released. Carlos Martinez was a brilliant engineer whose innovation created what has been known as the Blackwood hybrid system. We failed him in life and dishonored him in death. We are committed to ensuring his legacy lives on through the Carlos Martinez Safety Foundation and by properly crediting his work in all future materials. We are profoundly sorry. Sophia read it to Miguel that night, curled up on their shared mattress. Does this mean we're rich now? Miguel asked. It means we're okay, Sophia corrected. It means you can go to college. It means mom doesn't have to work 2 jobs. It means dad's name is on his invention forever. Miguel thought about that. That's better than being rich. 2 weeks later, the settlement money allowed Mr. Patterson to expand his shop, to create a youth mechanics program in Carlos Martinez's name. Sophia stood in front of 6 kids from the neighborhood, ages 8 to 14, all from families who struggled like hers had, and taught them how to change oil. The oil filter is here, she explained, pointing. You turn it counterclockwise. Like this. The kids watched with wide eyes, learning, growing, discovering that they could fix things. Mr. Patterson watched from the doorway, his eyes wet. Your dad would love this, kid. I know, Sophia said. That's why we're doing it. Her phone buzzed. A message from Dr. Jennifer Hayes, now CEO of Blackwood Industries. First production run of the Carlos Martinez hybrid system just rolled off the assembly line. Your father's name is on every engine. Sending you the first one. It's yours. Sophia smiled. 1 year later, Sophia stood on stage at the Chicago Auto Show. She was 13 now. Taller, but still with grease permanently stained under her fingernails. Behind her on a massive screen was her father's photograph. Young, brilliant, grinning at the camera like he'd just solved the world's biggest puzzle. 3,000 people filled the auditorium. Engineers, journalists, executives, students. All waiting to hear her speak. My dad used to say that fixing things is about more than understanding how they work, Sophia began. It's about caring enough to try. About refusing to walk past something broken and pretend you don't see it. She clicked to the next slide. The viral video, condensed to 30 seconds. A year ago, I saw a broken car. I could have walked past. Could have told myself it wasn't my problem. That a kid like me didn't belong anywhere near a vehicle worth $500,000. Sophia paused. But my father taught me that talent doesn't care about age or money or where you come from. It only cares if you're brave enough to use it. The screen changed. Carlos's original sketches of the hybrid system. The Carlos Martinez hybrid system isn't just an invention. It's proof that innovation comes from people who care, who work late nights because they believe in making the world better, who sacrifice everything for an idea they know is right. Sophia's voice grew stronger. My father died protecting that idea. And for a while, the world forgot he existed. She looked at the section where Alexander Blackwood sat. He'd insisted on attending, on being present when Carlos's legacy was honored. But something amazing happened when people remembered, when they saw what had been stolen and decided it mattered. She clicked to the next slide. Headlines from the past year. The Carlos Martinez Safety Foundation has implemented new protocols at 43 automotive plants across North America. 0 deaths in the past year. 0 preventable accidents. Because people finally started listening to engineers instead of just pushing them to work faster. The crowd erupted in applause. But the foundation is just the beginning. My dad's hybrid system is now in 2 million vehicles worldwide. Every single one carries a plaque that says designed by Carlos Martinez, engineer and father. She clicked to the final slide. Miguel, now 10, working under the hood of a car at Patterson's auto shop. This is my brother Miguel. He's learning to be a mechanic. Not because we need him to work. The settlement means he'll never have to worry about money. He's learning because our father taught us that using your hands to fix things, to build things, to make things work, that's not just a job. It's a way of seeing the world. Sophia pulled out her father's multi-tool. Worn smooth from years of use. Dad carried this every day. The week before he died, he gave it to me. Said I was ready to start fixing things on my own. I thought he was just talking about engines. Her voice cracked, but she pushed through. But he wasn't. He was teaching me that fixing things, really fixing them, means not accepting broken systems, broken promises, broken justice. It means being brave enough to say this is wrong, even when everyone tells you to stay quiet. Sophia looked directly at the camera broadcasting this speech to millions. A year ago, I was just a kid who fixed a car. But that moment changed everything because people decided it mattered. They decided that a 12-year-old girl standing up to a billionaire was a story worth caring about. The screen showed the Carlos Martinez Memorial Wall at Blackwood Industries headquarters. Her father's name and photo prominently featured. My father's name is on that wall. On patents. On engines. On the foundation that saved lives. But more than that, his name is in every conversation about protecting workers, crediting inventors, choosing people over profits. Sophia's voice grew fierce. To everyone watching, you have a choice. When you see something broken, whether it's a car or a system or justice itself, you can walk past, or you can stop and say those 3 words that change everything. She held up her father's multi-tool one last time. I can fix this. The crowd stood, applauding until their hands hurt. That evening, Sophia returned to Patterson's auto shop. The youth program class was in session. 15 kids learning how to diagnose engine problems. A little girl, maybe 9, looked up at Sophia with wonder. How did you learn all this? My dad taught me, Sophia said. The same way I'm teaching you. He used to say that fixing things is the most important skill anyone can learn. Not just cars, anything that's broken. Even if you're just a kid, the girl asked. Especially if you're just a kid, Sophia said. Because kids haven't learned yet that some things are impossible. We still believe we can fix anything if we care enough to try. Outside, the first snow of winter was falling on Chicago. Inside Patterson's auto shop, 15 kids were learning that grease-stained hands and secondhand tools could change the world. Because Sophia Martinez had proven something her father always knew. That fixing what's broken starts with someone brave enough to believe it's possible. That talent doesn't need permission from the powerful. That a 12-year-old girl with zip ties and determination can bring down empires built on lies. And that the 3 most powerful words in any language are simple, honest, and true. I can fix this. Sophia Martinez's story reminds us that justice doesn't always come from the powerful or the wealthy. Sometimes it comes from the brave, from the determined, from those who refuse to let the world forget the people they love. Carlos Martinez's name now lives on in millions of vehicles, in safety protocols that protect workers, and in the minds of children who learn that being small doesn't mean being powerless. And somewhere a father is smiling, because his daughter kept her promise. She made the world remember his name.